What I want to start with, and I don't want to overreact to it too much because I think it's normal to hear guys, especially guys at the top of the draft, opt out of the workouts and things like that. And that it's a big storyline this week. You know, Caleb Williams, QB1 out of USC, Drake May out of UNC, Jaden Daniels, the Heisman Trophy winner. None of these guys expected to work out at the combine. But then the thing that makes this extra interesting to me is what we're hearing about Marvin Harrison Jr., the all-world receiver out of Ohio State, widely expected to be a top 3-5 pick. He's not doing the combine. He's maybe not even doing a pro day. And I just wonder, like over the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, people have really embraced the value of the combine. I think people turn up their nose a lot less than they used to about what these drills can do for you. But now I wonder if we're seeing a switch back to the other side where it's like, these guys are training for months and months at a time to run a 40-yard dash or do whatever position specific drill it is. And does it seem like maybe we're just switching back to like, hey, no, let's focus on football and not get too wrapped up in what's happening here in Indianapolis?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot about, ultimately it comes back to what people see on film or what they gleam in their meetings individually with players. The other thing that I think is a component of this also is right now with the technology it is with GPS tracking data, and you can tell how fast somebody's running, on a play in game or certainly in practice. A lot of those, that's not just on the film, it's quantifiable. And some of the technology, the way they can manage it and not spin it, but kind of gauge certain things from it, I think, can be more valuable than how fast somebody is on a straight line for 40 yards. And obviously there's certain tests that different coaches, depending on which position they're talking about, feel are more valuable. I mean, is a 10-yard split more valuable for an offensive lineman than a 40-yard, obviously, but those numbers are still, I think because there's some form of a gauge for somebody to compare it from generation to generation. I don't know how much anybody's going to take off of, like I said, if you have a guard who's running a certain time in the 40, I think there's probably other metrics that they would say are more valuable. I think in terms of the quarterbacks, like Marvin Harrison Jr. is interesting. He's been a guy who's been on my freaks list the last couple of years. He's in the top 3. Whether if he ran 4.43 as opposed to 4.39, I don't think anybody looked at him any differently. They've had a lot of film on him. I think people, have also a deep reservoir of information from that Ohio State position room and the guys who come from there. So, whether it's Brian Hartline's word on him or Ryan Day's word on him, they have a lot of context compared to Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Terry McLaurin. There's a bunch of dudes who come through there. It's not like one of the things you hear a lot in evaluation is, how does this coach know what a great one is if he's never had a great one? But the flip side is when some of these guys have, and they can give you quantified, perspective on it, I think it definitely adds something.
Yeah, I would guess Brian Hartline, working at Ohio State, knows a thing or two about what a great wide receiver looks like here over the last few years. And I think it's a valid point too. When we talk about shifts in attitude, I think you're talking about like the top 1% of players. Like to your point, Marvin Harrison's going to get drafted in the top 10 no matter what he does, barring a catastrophe.